We've had a very busy day of NHL trade activity. Tonight, we're going to take a look at the remaining top players that are likely in play ahead of tomorrow's NHL Trade Deadline. We're looking at guys like Taylor Hall in Buffalo. How many teams are still trying to acquire him? We also have some other players like Jamie Alexiak, Matthias Janmark, maybe Hayden Fleury in Carolina, and a whole lot more. We'll jump into the latest coming up next. Welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. Now, as I mentioned, we're going to take a look at the last little bit here of trade rumors leading into tomorrow's NHL Trade Deadline. We've had a lot of activity here over the past couple of days. There's not a ton of big names left, but there's certainly still some very interesting pieces that are likely going to get moved. Now, let's kick things off with Taylor Hall, arguably the biggest name out there, one of the most interesting players that we've been watching here for some time. The latest reports come from TSN's Frank Seravalli indicating that it's believed to be down to about 3 teams that are in the mix. He indicated one of them to be the Bruins, which makes a lot of sense. I've been talking for a while based on what other insiders are saying that the Bruins are believed to be in the mix there. That's the only team he mentioned. Personally, if I had to pick which ones are the other teams in there, I think the Islanders are one. And I think to a degree we could say maybe either St. Louis, maybe Colorado, maybe Washington being one of the other ones. I know on a Nick Foligno trade to send him to the Toronto Maple Leafs, it was reported that some teams like Washington were willing to put a first rounder on the table for him. So maybe they pivot towards Hall. Maybe they don't want to. It's believed too that the asking price might have come down enough that maybe a first rounder won't be included for Hall. It's hard to say, but there's likely going to be a third-party team in there, kind of broker the deal like we saw with guys like Savard and Foligno. Looking at maybe the Sharks in there again, maybe Detroit. They could probably do one more. Even a team like Ottawa could benefit from that as well with the cap space that they have available. So they would likely be using a third team broker there to get the deal done. But I think personally, Washington is a team that's kind of not real sure that they would pay a high price for Hall. Foligno's a different kind of player. I think maybe the Islanders and the Bruins would be my top two. St. Louis is going to be an interesting team to watch here too. It wasn't long ago St. Louis was likely going to be sellers. They've played their way back into a playoff spot here, like back in the mix. Maybe Doug Armstrong goes out and adds it. I don't know. But I mean, with Hall, it's believed that he's willing to entertain an extension too. So they could be one of those stealth teams that you're not real sure of and kind of surprise you a little bit. But those are the latest rumors on Hall. I think personally, the Islanders have the biggest edge. I would say probably Boston being maybe next, and then I said maybe St. Louis, Washington, to a degree Colorado. I'm not sure the Avs are going to make that kind of move, but you never know. Hard to say. Now, a couple other players to keep your eye on here. Matthias Janmark in Chicago, held out of the lineup, is not going to be likely playing with the Blackhawks any longer. Many believe he could be a good complementary piece to a variety of teams out there. He's known to play well with other solid top 6 players. He could be a guy that could play a top 6 or a middle 6 role for a variety of teams and be that extra insurance piece. So Chicago, I'm not sure what the asking price is going to be. I'm guessing probably second or third round pick, something to that degree. It's not going to be a huge price tag, but they're certainly kind of waiting it out to see if they can get any better offers. But Janmark's definitely a player to be looking for. Jamie Alexiak in Dallas apparently was getting a lot of interest. Some thought he might have been heading towards Montreal. They've since acquired John Merrill earlier today, so doubtful that they're in on him as well. I know the Habs are now pretty tight on space without moving something out, which you can never rule out, I guess. But Alexiak's another guy. I mean, a team like Winnipeg comes to mind as a prime example. We've been waiting for Cheveldayoff to pull the trigger here and acquire a defenseman, but obviously the price tags are higher than he probably wants to pay, which is why things haven't happened yet. But certainly look to a team like Winnipeg for sure. They'd be a great fit, in my opinion. Obviously, there's also talk that came yesterday that was mentioned on TSN Insider Trading with Pierre LeBrun, I believe, mentioned about Ryan Getzlaf maybe being discussed by the Montreal Canadiens. Now, he believes that the Habs were asking the Ducks about Getzlaf. Most people feel that Getzlaf likely doesn't go anywhere and stays in Anaheim. Maybe signs a short-term extension, maybe retires. It's hard to say what his future holds beyond the current season. But the Habs were kind of poking around, just talking to the Ducks to see if they could do that. Now, of course, he has a no-trade clause, so the Ducks would have to approach him on that. And Bob Murray already made it clear before that he would talk to Getzlaf and he would only really try to find a deal for him if he wanted to go chase the Stanley Cup with another organization, which we don't know that if he wants to do that or not. But it's some interesting thoughts there to say that the Habs are actually kind of lurking around asking about him. I mean, I can understand why they might do that. It would be difficult to say what happened in that regard. They'd have to move some money out for sure. And we'd obviously have to have the Ducks retain 50%. And even then, it still gets complicated. Not sure it's going to be easy to happen on the Habs side. And pretty unlikely, but just interesting to note that they were making some inquiries. Now, another deal that apparently was close and may or may not happen still, but if it does, likely looking at tomorrow, the Penguins apparently were in touch with the Ducks about acquiring Nick Delorier to add some grit and toughness. No big surprise with Brian Burke and Ron Hextall the mix there in Pittsburgh that they want to add some grit and some toughness. It's already been known that their kind of wish list was a solid physical type of forward, so he certainly fits that bill. I thought they might go after somebody with a little bit more offense, but still, if they can squeeze him into their lineup, it's probably not a bad move. The price tag on that, I would imagine, won't be too high. So we'll see if Delorier does indeed end up going to Pittsburgh or not. There was reports that earlier tonight that it was close, but then it kind of hung out there. So I'm not sure what will come from it. The last report I've seen said it's not going to happen tonight, which you never know, I guess, but it's more likely to possibly get finished tomorrow. So we'll keep our eye on that one as well. Now, a couple teams as well looking for goaltenders, looking at the Washington Capitals. I know they've been in on maybe looking to acquire a solid forward here. Obviously, they were rumored to be one of the teams in the final conversations around Nick Foligno, but there's still a lot to believe here that they could be going after a goalie. Now, there was some talk that maybe Henrik Lundqvist could be back after all in time for the playoffs, but we did get confirmation here today from the King himself that Henrik Lundqvist has said he cannot make it back, that he's tried everything he can. He was pushing hard, and he's ran into some setbacks with some more inflammation around his heart after the open heart surgery that he had, and that he's going to need some more time to heal and rest before he can really push and entertain a comeback. So a comeback's not happening this year for Lundqvist. We'll have to see about next year. Obviously, no big guarantees there by any means that he makes it back. Hopefully, for his sake, he does. I know it sounds like he still wants to push to play and try to chase the Stanley Cup, but for right now, Henrik Lundqvist's season is over. So the Capitals could pursue a veteran guy like a David Riddick, maybe a Jonathan Bernier. There's all kinds of veterans out there that could be available. Ryan Miller in Anaheim's another possibility too. So we haven't seen much activity in the goalie market, so we'll have to see here what they might be doing, but that's the main thing I think that they should be looking to do. And of course, then also on the goalie front, there was also confirmed earlier that the Sabres in Linus Ullmark will not be coming to a contract extension before the deadline, so there is a possibility he gets traded. Apparently, he wants to test free agency, so the Sabres are not going to get that done. So it's hard to say if they do move him. They may not, with the hopes that if they keep him, and they can maybe continue to see about a contract if they really want to. It sounded like they wanted to get him signed, but obviously if he wants to test free agency, that's his right, and he very well may not end up returning to Buffalo. So the same goes for Carter Hutton. He's on an expiring contract as well. The Sabres could have a lot of holes in their lineup, and Kevin Adams could be an extremely busy man this offseason with a lot of holes to fill. So we'll see on that front. So that is all your latest rumor rundown for now. Like I said, a lot of big names have already been on the move. That's what we're hearing on the remaining players that are out there. There could be some other deals as well. I know there was one on Columbus and maybe even moving Max Domi. That was floating around early, but I haven't really heard a whole lot more about that. So hard to say if there's truth to that. So we could see a lot more activity here leading into tomorrow afternoon's deadline. So stay tuned. We'll keep you up to date with all the latest news from all the teams here in the NHL. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll catch you next time.